I've been flying both of these drones for a while, and in today's video I'll give you guys some honest impressions and feedback about how they perform in some real life situations. So hopefully by the end of the video you'll have a much clearer idea which one you should buy. So let's begin. As usual, we have a lot of information to cover, so make sure you check the description for some timestamps if you're only interested in a specific section. This video was a ton of work to create, so if you want to show your support, make sure you click the like button and subscribe for more videos like this one. Now let's begin. So starting off with the size and the weight. Obviously both of these drones are 249 grams. They do go under that 250 gram mark, so you don't have to register them, and they give you a little bit more freedom, a little bit more flexibility in terms of how you can fly them. Of course, you still have to obey the local rules and regulations about drone flying in your country. However, you have a lot more flexibility to fly over people, fly over cars, and basically create more shots that are not possible otherwise. The Nano Plus definitely looks smaller than the Mini 3 Pro, and that is mostly because of the new look of the Mini 3 Pro with those protruding sensors on the front, with the camera system and how it is designed. However, when you put them side by side, they definitely don't look that different from each other. The build quality on both of these drones is what you would expect from a drone that is under 250 grams. They do feel a little bit plasticky and light in your hand because they need to keep the weight down, so obviously they don't use the premium materials that you would find on other more expensive drones. However, I really don't think you're looking for premium materials on a drone like this because they are so small, you can literally just carry them in your hand. And one thing I would say is that I really like the way Autel has done their prop protection. They have a little band that I currently don't have on, but it's a really easy and neat way to keep the props secured. You don't have that on the Mini 3 Pro, so they tend to just flop around everywhere, and it's a little bit easier to break them, so make sure you always have some spare props in your bag when you go out, because you never know when you are going to break them. So and also that prop tool to change them is also something that you need to carry with you at all times. Just a little heads up, because I had to do it once already because of my own way of carrying the drone. Now, in terms of flight performance, we have a lot to talk about. So let's start with the sensors. Both of these drones pretty much have the same sensors all around, so they have sensors on the front, the back, and also on the bottom. The Mini 3 Pro has the chance to use active track to follow you around, but you need to be aware that those sensors are not ideal in like a big dense forest, because they only work on the front and on the back. You don't have sensors on the sides, and the ones on the bottom are really only just used for landing. So make sure you don't go into deep dense forest to test the active track, because you will probably crash. However, for wider areas where you don't have that many obstacles, you can use active track on the Mini 3 Pro, and it works very well. The Autel, on the other hand, promises to have dynamic tracking 2.1. Even on the materials listed on Autel's website, you can see dynamic tracking 2.1, but when you take a look at the small text on one of the pages, you will see that it will be added later via firmware update. So even though you have those sensors, the software is not up to date yet, and you still don't have that option available. Although when you enter portrait mode, for example, you see that the drone can kind of recognize you and not exactly follow you, but it can track you, but it doesn't work in this specific dynamic tracking mode that they promise this drone will have at a later point. I'm not a huge fan of active track in general because it never works that well. However, there is a definitely huge point for Mini 3 Pro against the Nano Plus because it just doesn't have it yet. When you try to take off with these drones, you will see a big difference between the two. The Mini 3 Pro takes off very graciously, very smoothly, and it's also very quiet while taking off. Whereas the Nano Plus takes off like an angry bee, ready to fight. It's very, very aggressive, and it's also a lot noisier. So there is a big difference, and especially if you plan to fly around people, they will turn around to see what's going on, because this drone is definitely a lot noisier, and it's just for your peace of mind. You will be a little bit more stressed out while flying this, in my opinion, because it's just not that smooth. It's also the controls of the drone straight out of the box without any modifications are a lot sharper, a lot more aggressive, and not as smooth as the Mini 3 Pro. So this one twitches and moves very quickly. As soon as you push the sticks, it moves very quickly, so it reacts very quickly to your movements and your commands, whereas the Mini 3 Pro is a lot more smoother, a lot more fluid, and it's a bit slower as well. So when you push them full throttle to go ahead, you will see that the Mini 3 Pro lacks some speed, whereas the Nano Plus just takes off very quickly. So that's something that can be, of course, adjusted via the settings, but straight out of the box, this one is definitely a lot more aggressive, and it's just, I wouldn't really say it's perfect straight out of the box. It needs a little bit more calibration, a little bit more tweaking to make it a little bit smoother, because if that's your first drone, you will be a little bit more intimidated. Now, the next thing I want to mention is that both of these drones have very good wind resistance, especially concerning the fact that they are both under 250 grams. However, the Mini 3 Pro definitely takes this again, because the Nano Plus doesn't stay rock solid in one place. It moves a little bit more compared to the Mini 3 Pro. So if you are planning to fly in windier areas and that's something that is important for you, the Mini 3 Pro definitely wins here. The flight time on both of these drones is kind of similar, up to 34 minutes on the Mini 3 Pro and up to 28 minutes on the Nano Plus. Those 6 minutes could really make a difference, but it really depends how you fly, because if it's windy, the flight time will be significantly reduced. And like I said, these drones can handle the wind, but it will cost you some precious flight time. Now let's get to the big topic of the camera, because the camera is probably the most important thing on these drones, and most people are interested in exactly that specific part. And let me tell you, these two drones are just neck and neck. They're so close, so it all comes down to personal preference, because I'm sure many people will like the image of the Mini 3 Pro, but also there will be many people who prefer the image from the Nano Plus. So both of these drones can shoot great footage. Obviously the Mini 3 Pro can shoot up to 4K 60, whereas the Nano Plus shoots up to 4K 30, but they both have different color science, so the same colors look different on both of these drones. As an example, I've been flying both of these drones exactly right after another in very similar conditions. Of course, there have been some clouds or some sun moving around, but for the most part, they've been flown maybe 5 minutes apart from each other. So the image is very similar, or at least should be similar, but you will see the difference in terms of colors, how they look like. And this is of course all shot in automatic camera settings, everything set to auto, so you can see how the drone decides to manipulate the image and how it can interpret the lighting to show you the final result. They also both have flat color profiles, D-Cinelike on the Mini 3 Pro and log footage on the Nano Plus. I'm a big fan of both of these because they give you a lot of flexibility to manipulate your footage and color grade it the way you want to. The log is very easy to color grade once you get the hang of it, but D-Cinelike is even easier. So it's really easy to get used to those flat color profiles if you want to incorporate them in your workflow. However, if you don't want to deal with that, you can just shoot everything in auto, everything in normal color profile, and the results will still be very good looking. I'm a big fan of both of these, especially at this beach location where I shot. I think the Nano Plus actually takes the win because the colors are just very vivid straight out of the camera. Some people would say that they're too vivid, too saturated, but I feel like they definitely look very good. The Mini 3 Pro kind of lacks some saturation in some areas, whereas the Nano Plus just adds a little bit more from it. So they both, like I said, interpret the lighting and the footage in a different way, and the color science also makes a big difference. The way that the greens look, the way that the blues look on both of these drones is very different. So it's really a matter of personal preference in the end. Now at nighttime, I was really surprised to see how capable the Nano Plus is, because the aperture of this drone is f1.9, whereas on the Mini 3 Pro we have an aperture of f1.7, which realistically should make it the winner. However, I think the Nano Plus actually wins here because of how the shadows are manipulated. They don't look like a giant dark block of blackness, whereas on the Mini 3 Pro, even if you go up with the ISO of 3200 or even 6400, you just don't have that much detail in the shadows, and it's just not as pleasing to the eye compared to the Nano Plus. Of course, both of these drones can shoot high-resolution RAW photos with their cameras. The Mini 3 Pro has 48 megapixel camera, whereas the Nano Plus has 50 megapixel camera. To be honest, I'm not a huge fan of those super high resolution images because they tend to lose some detail. I prefer the standard photo modes on both of these drones, of course in RAW format, so they can give me some sharpness, some more detail, and some better looking final results. I think the Mini 3 Pro is definitely the winner here. The images are just a lot crisper, a lot sharper, and have a lot more detail, and in general are more pleasing to the eye, even the night ones. I prefer the night photos of the Mini 3 Pro, but the night videos of the Nano Plus. Now there is a big difference again between the two in terms of vertical shooting, something that DJI introduced on the Mini 3 Pro, which is kind of revolutionary because the way of how the camera can tilt vertically, so it can shoot vertical video. If you want to shoot for Instagram, for some reels, or for TikTok, you can do that with the Mini 3 Pro, and you can't do that with the Nano Plus. So that's a big win for the Mini 3 Pro. If you're looking for those features and you want to quickly switch from horizontal video to vertical video, you can do that on the Mini 3 Pro. It's very easy, and you tend to have a lot more flexibility on how you can compose your shot in a vertical orientation. Whereas on the Nano Plus, you're stuck with horizontal only. Something which I was pleasantly surprised by is hyperlapses on both of these drones. Hyperlapses have been present on many DJI drones previously, but this is the first mini small drone that has hyperlapses available, and I was pleasantly surprised to see they are just as good. They have all the flexibility that you have seen from other drones, so you have a lot of settings to tweak if you want to. You can shoot all of your photos in RAW if you prefer, or you can use the compiled video that the drone makes for you after the hyperlapse is done. So this is how the hyperlapse looks like on the Mini 3 Pro. Very impressed by it. It's extremely smooth, very nice and fluid, but the same can't be said for the Nano Plus, unfortunately, because they're just lacking some AI, I would say, because of how they are stabilized afterwards. There are some very visible bumps and movements from the drone that are not cleared in the final result which the drone makes for you. I do like the fact that you can make the drone go in a certain direction and just lock it with a press of a button, and it will just keep going forward while it takes photos every couple of seconds, and it will compile that hyperlapse for you later. But you only have two options for hyperlapse on the Nano Plus. You have the free hyperlapse, which is, like I mentioned, you can lock the direction and the drone will keep going in that direction while taking photos, or you have that circle hyperlapse, which will circle around an object that you have selected while making hyperlapse with it. Now the next thing I want to talk about is the remote controllers, because they are also quite different from each other. Now the DJI Mini 3 Pro comes with this DJI RC with a built-in screen, very high brightness, no antennas on the top, and overall it's very comfortable in your hands, very lightweight, and it's a pleasure to use. Now the built-in screen is great for situations where you don't want to carry your phone or your phone overheats. If you're using an iPhone, you will know that when using in bright and sunny weather, it will overheat quite quickly and it will automatically dim the display to a very low brightness, and it's almost impossible to see anything on it. So when flying with the Nano Plus, that's exactly what happened to my phone. It was almost impossible to see where I'm filming because the display was just so low in terms of brightness. Here you don't have that problem because the display is always very bright. It's not as bright as the peak brightness of modern day smartphones. However, it doesn't dim down the display when it gets hot. So that's a big plus. And it's also very comfortable, very easy to just power on, not have to deal with any apps or anything, because it just opens the app automatically and it just starts and it's ready to be used. However, there is something which I noticed on this remote while using it that I don't really like, and that is when you need to unlock some geo zones, you don't have internet on this remote controller, obviously. So you need to make your phone a hotspot, you need to go into the settings, you need to connect to that hotspot Wi-Fi network, and then you need to go back to the app, you need to unlock the zone. The first couple of times it didn't work, so I was like, okay, what should I do now? I can't unlock the zone. And then I kept trying and it happened randomly, but it was not ideal. If I was in a pinch and I had to quickly get up in the air and start filming, I wouldn't be able to do that. Here you don't have this problem because obviously, first of all, you don't have any geo zones on the Nano Plus, which is a huge positive for this drone. You don't have to worry about that. So you don't have to unlock anything. You can fly pretty much everywhere you want, and that's a big pro for the Nano Plus. But on this remote, there are some things which I don't like the fact that you don't have a second gimbal wheel, you don't have that many customizable buttons, you only have one, and this cable is always just dangling around. It's something that you will end up losing at some point if you just keep it like this. And of course you can't, there is no place, no dedicated place for the stick ends where you can put them, so I tend to just put them on and keep them like this. And I'm a little bit afraid I might just break them all together because I just throw this in my backpack as it is. Yeah, it's not very convenient. I think the biggest weaknesses of the Nano Plus, for example, is the software side and the support from Autel. They have been very slow with releasing firmware updates, and because they also released this drone and the Lite Plus at the same time, they've been working on both of them at the same time. They've been releasing some firmware updates only for one of them and then some features available only for the other one. They've released dynamic tracking on the Lite Plus, but that's been only available for people, not for cars and for other objects. They don't have it here on the Nano Plus, so they're kind of like dropping the ball when it comes to releasing firmware updates and supporting their products. So for now, they are lacking some features that should have been on the drone from day one. Also, at all times while you fly, you will hear something beeping, some voice prompts, and just all of it feels like somebody is constantly shouting in your ear while you're trying to focus and fly. It's super annoying, and I can't for the life of me understand why they've done it that way. Just take a look at this.
Start recording. Stop recording. Start recording. Stop recording.
A simple beep every time you start and stop recording would have been a lot better. No voice prompts. But speaking of voice prompts, check this out. Every time you try to land the drone, there's not only a ton of beeping letting you know that you're close to the ground, but also there's another voice prompt saying that
Gimbal is self-checking. Please take off later.
Gimbal? Take off later. But I just landed. So in that aspect, I think DJI is far ahead from Autel in terms of software development and just interface and fluidity in the app and just making it all easy for the random casual flyer. So yeah, 1 point again for DJI here. So finally I want to talk about the price. The Nano Plus with a premium bundle which comes with 3 batteries in total, some extra props and accessories, a carrying bag and some other small things, costs $1,100, which is quite a lot for a mini 249 gram drone. But the same goes for the Mini 3 Pro. They're basically the same when you combine the price of the DJI Mini 3 Pro with the DJI RC and you throw in the Fly More kit, which also comes with 2 extra batteries and some pretty much the same accessories as the Nano Plus. It totals to $1,100 once again, so they're pretty much the same price, but here you get a remote with a built-in screen, and here you have a drone which doesn't have any geofencing. So this is a big plus for the Nano Plus, but if you don't care about that, you can have the DJI RC with the built-in screen. However, if you don't want to get the DJI RC, you can get the drone with this standard RC N1, or you can, if you already have one of those, you can buy just the drone without any remotes, and you can just stock up on your spare batteries after if you want, and it will be a lot cheaper compared to the Nano Plus. So my overall thoughts on the battle between those two, which one should you buy? It's really complicated because I feel like the Mini 3 Pro is definitely the more polished and more well-rounded product. However, I can't just discard the Nano Plus in terms of how the camera works and the images that it produces. It's a very good camera. It flies very well. Yes, it's a little bit more aggressive. It's not as fluid and smooth as the Mini 3 Pro is. It's a little bit, this one is a little bit more refined. This is a bit more raw, I would say, but it's faster, it's more nimble. It doesn't have any geofencing. It shoots better video at night. If that's something important for you, then it's definitely something that you should consider. But it still has those software issues that I mentioned earlier, so it needs more work from Autel so it can be a little bit more elevated and more polished, so it can really compete with the Mini 3 Pro. For now, I think the Mini 3 Pro takes the win, and it's a very comfortable win, I would say. In most of the areas, the Mini 3 Pro is the better drone, but that doesn't take away anything from the Autel Nano Plus because it's also a good product, just needs a little bit more work. And since it's been on the market for a couple of months now, I, to be honest, have been expecting more from it because I was just hoping it will work better straight out of the box, but I still see some issues that need to be addressed as soon as possible. So Autel, if you're watching this, please take into consideration those issues that I mentioned, fix them as soon as possible, and you will have more products sold and more clients and more people using your products. For now, the Mini 3 Pro is the better choice in my opinion. Let me know in the comment section below what is yours. And if you have enjoyed this video, don't forget to click the like button, subscribe for more videos like this one. Like I said, this video has been a ton of work to make, so if you want to show your support, you already know how to do it. So this is Mike from Drone Supremacy. Thank you so much for your support, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care and goodbye.